I'm so happy because I got a really exciting parcel in the post last week from Farina Metal, and it means that we have to make croissants together. In case you don't know me, hi, I'm Mary and I make sourdough bread. I'm going to show you step by step how I make croissants, but instead of rolling them out by hand like I usually would today, I'm going to be using this beautiful dough sheeter. It's my very first time ever using a machine like this, so I'm super excited to see how I'll go. You might wonder what the advantage of a dough sheeter is compared to just using a rolling pin. Firstly, it relieves the physical effort of having to roll out the dough so many times, and it's a lot quicker than doing it by hand. And it also means that the dough gets rolled out super evenly. And it's really good for my future prospects of being able to make lots of croissants at once to sell at a market, which is one of my goals. This isn't an ad, but I was gifted this beautiful machine. I love to support other small businesses, and I think Farina Metal makes such high quality, thoughtful products. I'm so lucky to have one in my house, and I'm so excited to get to share it with you too. And I have a discount code for you, so if you'd like your own dough sheeter, you can get it at a special price and with free postage worldwide as well. First, let's have a look at this beautiful machine and see how it works so we can use it to make some croissants. Yes, in case you're wondering, I am pregnant and I've been feeling really sick lately, which is why you haven't heard very much from me, but today has been a good day. And that's why we're making the croissants. So it has a foot pedal, which is really cool because you can stop and start the machine hands-free. It reminds me a little bit of a sewing machine. You can choose which side of the machine you have the handle on to suit where you've put your machine, and the handle is really easy to use so you can quickly adjust the thickness. I learned that you have to start out thicker and gradually get thinner when you're rolling out the dough, like you don't just start with the thickness you're aiming for, so you use the handle quite a lot. There's a reverse button so you can make the machine go backwards if the dough has gone through too far, and I also really like that the whole machine is stainless steel. It feels very luxury. So let's make the croissants. This process takes a few days, and this is day one. We're going to make the butter block and mix the dough. First, I take 140 grams of butter at room temperature and measure out a 15 by 15 centimeters square on baking paper, and I put the butter into the square, and then I fold it up and squish the butter into the edges of the square with a rolling pin. I like to leave it overnight in the fridge so the butter gets nice and firm. You never want to let the butter get too soft while you're making croissants. I'm gonna make the dough now. I'm obsessed with sourdough, but I'm making yeast croissants today because they're a little bit more predictable and easier to manage than the sourdough ones. I'm adding yeast, salt, sugar, butter, water, milk, and then mixing. And then I'm adding strong white flour, which is the same flour that I use for making bread. The measurements are in the caption. It's a pretty dry dough, but it comes together as you work with it. I knead the dough for about 5 minutes until it starts to become smoother, and then it goes into the fridge to rest overnight. Now it's day 2, and this is where we do most of the work rolling out the dough. And this is where we get to try out the dough sheeter. First, I'm rolling out the dough to just over double the length of the butter block and a tiny bit wider, so about 32 centimeters long and 16 centimeters wide. I decided to do this step by hand because I don't want the dough to get too long. Now I'm taking my butter block and putting it in the center and folding up the dough so that it's locked inside. And now it's going back into the fridge because I can feel the butter melting already, and we don't want that. My cat Benny is always here supervising my baking. It's been half an hour or so and the butter should have firmed up, so let's continue with the folds. We do lots of folds of the dough because every time it creates more and more and thinner layers of butter, which is what gives croissants that airy flakiness that's so delicious. Now we get to use the dough sheeter. I'm a little bit afraid and mainly very excited. It just goes through so fast. It's so much easier than using a rolling pin. Total revolution. I've gotten the dough to about 42 by 16 centimeters. I'm doing a book fold where you fold the top and bottom so that they meet in the center, and then fold the dough in half. And now it can go back in the fridge again so the butter doesn't get too soft. I should mention, officially, you're not supposed to make croissants when it's over 18 degrees Celsius, but I've broken this rule so many times and they've still been good. Hey, it's 30 degrees Celsius. It just means you need to work quickly so the butter doesn't melt too much. It probably will melt a little, but that's okay. It's been about an hour and I'm gonna do a letter fold, rolling out the dough with a dough sheeter again. It gets thinner really quickly, so I realized I can't put it through too many times. times. I'm aiming for about 42 by 16 centimeters again. For the letter fold, you fold it into 3 parts, like when you're folding a letter so it goes into its envelope, and then the dough just goes back into the fridge again. Making croissants is like mainly just waiting around for the dough to cool down. Next, I'm going to roll it out into a rectangle about 42 by 25 centimeters, and then it's just going to stay in the fridge overnight again. I'm using the dough sheeter here for the first part, and then I'm just finishing it off by hand. And now it goes back into the fridge one last time overnight, and we'll continue tomorrow. Okay, day 3 is here, the day we finally bake the croissants. A secret, it's actually 4 days since mixing the dough. It spent an extra day hanging out the fridge because I was busy and feeling a little bit sick. That's okay. The more time in the fridge means even more tastier croissants. It actually doesn't matter. You can't rush croissants, but you can definitely slow them down. The steps on day 3 are my favorite parts of the process. First, I'm rolling out the dough to a rectangle a tiny bit wider, so about 42 by 38 centimeters. I also cut off the edges so that everything is nice and straight and even. And then I'm measuring 5 centimeters along the top and the bottom of the dough and cutting out triangles. I'm making a little cut at the bottom of each triangle and then stretching them out very gently. Then I'm rolling them up, and finally they look like actual croissants. They're so cute, and you can see all the buttery layers. It's still really hot in my kitchen, so they're a bit melty, but that's okay, we'll just go with it. And they go into a tray lined with baking paper. I like to use a deep tray so that I can put another tray on top of it and use it like a lid to keep the steam in when they're baking, and so that they don't dry out when they're proving as well. I'm giving them a coat of egg wash, which is egg yolk and milk mixed together. And I'm trying to paint only the smooth parts and not the layers, which is kind of hard and I don't always succeed, but I'm trying. Now I let them develop for about 2 hours until they're puffy and jiggly. During this time, I put them in the oven with a bowl of warm water to make a nice steamy, warm environment for them to get nice and puffy in. And they're ready! Look at them jiggle. I'm giving them one last super gentle coat of egg wash, and I've preheated the oven to 180 degrees. And for the first 10 minutes, I'm baking them with a lid on top so they don't get too dried out. This way I don't have to worry about making a water bath for them. I've heard about oven doors shattering with a water bath and it terrifies me, so I'll do anything to avoid that. And then I bake them for another 10 minutes without the lid until they're golden brown. And finally, the best part of the entire process is getting to take a bite of a fresh, warm, soft, fluffy croissant that I made all by myself. It's so satisfying. I'm also eating it with jam that I made myself. Honestly, this just makes me so happy and proud of what I can do in my own home kitchen. I loved using the dough sheeter from Farina Metal to make these, and I can't wait to make lots and lots more. Do you have any dough sheeter requests for me? What should I try making with it next? I hope you give these a go too.